He thought the street would forget in seconds. He forgot the internet never does. The sound came first. A sharp gasp from somewhere in the crowd, followed by the slap of a purse hitting concrete. Monica Hayes stumbled one step, then another, catching herself before she fully fell. Her phone skidded across the sidewalk and stopped beside a newspaper box painted bright red. For a moment, downtown Chicago kept moving like nothing had happened. Buses hissed at the curb. A food cart vendor shouted about hot pretzels. Crosswalk signals blinked white figures across the intersection. Then the silence rolled in. People slowed. Heads turned. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Officer Daniel Reeves stood over her with one hand still raised, his jaw tight, chest puffed with the kind of certainty that comes from never being questioned. "Stay back and follow instructions," he barked, loud enough for half the block to hear. Monica looked up at him from one knee, breathing steadily. She was 38, dressed in a navy blazer, low heels, and the kind of calm that can't be bought or borrowed. A leather folder rested beside her, papers spilling halfway out. She didn't scramble. She didn't shout. She didn't give the crowd the breakdown some of them were already expecting. She simply picked up the folder, gathered the papers, and rose to her feet with deliberate grace. Reeves frowned like her composure offended him more than anything she could have said. "I told you to stay where you were," he snapped. Monica brushed dust from her sleeve and met his eyes. "You never told me why you stopped me," she said, her voice level and clear. The words hung in the cold spring air. Around them, strangers formed a loose circle of hesitation. Some watched with concern. Others watched with the numb curiosity cities teach people to wear. A teenage boy near the bus shelter held his phone chest high, thumb trembling as he recorded. Across the street, a security camera above a pharmacy angled directly toward the scene. A cyclist slowed, then stopped completely. Reeves stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough to sound more dangerous than loud. "You people always want to debate. Just comply." Monica's expression didn't change, but something in the crowd did. A woman in a tan coat muttered, "Did he really say that?" A man in a Cubs cap glanced around like he wanted someone else to speak first. No one did. Monica bent to retrieve her phone. The screen was cracked in one corner, a spiderweb of silver lines catching the afternoon light. She turned it over in her hand and slipped it into her bag. "Officer," she said, still calm, "there are witnesses here." Reeves gave a short laugh. "Good," he said. "Then they'll see what happens when people resist." He reached for his radio, trying to look casual, but a bead of sweat had formed near his temple despite the cool breeze off Lake Michigan. Monica noticed. So did the teenager filming. Somewhere behind the crowd, another phone rose into the air. Then another. Small black screens pointed toward the badge, the uniform, the face. Monica straightened her shoulders and adjusted the collar of her blazer. "You still have time," she said quietly. Reeves smirked. "Time for what?" She looked past him, not at the crowd but at the growing ring of cameras reflecting in store windows and bus glass. "To remember," she said, "that public streets have memories now." For the first time since he'd stepped toward her, Officer Daniel Reeves turned to see how many people were watching. Officer Daniel Reeves had faced angry people before, loud people before, frightened people before. He knew how to handle raised voices, trembling hands, and rushed apologies. What unsettled him now was none of that. It was silence. The kind that spreads when strangers stop pretending they do not see. He scanned the sidewalk and counted more phones than faces. A delivery driver stood beside his parked van recording openly. 2 office workers near the corner held their devices shoulder high. The teenage boy by the bus shelter had moved closer, careful but steady, capturing every second. Reeves forced a grin that did not reach his eyes. "Everybody move along," he called out. "Police business." No one moved. Monica Hayes stood 3 feet away, posture straight, one hand resting lightly on her bag strap. Her breathing was even. Her expression calm. If she felt embarrassed, she did not show it. If she felt angry, she wore it like steel hidden under silk. You should clear the area, Reeves said, trying again. This crowd is interfering. They are standing on a public sidewalk, Monica replied. Watching a public officer in public. A few people murmured at that. Someone in the back said, "She is right." Reeves turned sharply toward the voice, but there were too many faces now. Too many witnesses. The city around them seemed to lean in. A train rumbled overhead in the distance. Wind funneled down the avenue, carrying the smell of roasted nuts from a cart and the metallic scent of rain that had not yet fallen. Traffic lights changed from green to yellow to red as if time itself had paused to watch. Reeves touched the body camera clip to his chest, suddenly aware of it. He had forgotten to activate it. That mistake hit him harder than any accusation could have. He pressed the button quickly, but the movement was noticed. The teenager filming laughed under his breath. "Too late, man," he said. A ripple moved through the crowd. Monica heard it too. She did not smile. She simply tilted her head the slightest inch, as though confirming something she already knew. "Officer Reeves," she said, reading the nameplate on his uniform, "do you know how many stories begin with someone believing no one was recording?" His mouth tightened. "You do not know me." "I know enough," she answered. A city bus pulled up beside the shelter, brakes sighing loud enough to hush the block. Passengers looked through the windows at the scene before stepping off slower than usual, curiosity replacing routine. Several of them immediately raised their phones. The circle widened. Reeves reached for his radio again. "Dispatch, requesting additional unit," he said, voice clipped. "Crowd control." Monica's eyes never left him. "You asked for backup before asking why you stopped me," she said. "That tells everyone here what they need to know." A woman in scrubs stepped forward from the curb. "I saw the whole thing," she said. "She asked you a question." "That is all." Then an older man with silver hair pointed toward the pharmacy. "Camera." "Right there too," he added. "Been there 10 years. Reeves looked up at the lens mounted above the door, black and unblinking. For the first time, the street no longer felt like his stage. It felt like evidence. His phone buzzed inside his pocket. Then buzzed again. Then again. He ignored it. Monica glanced toward the sound. "That will keep happening," she said softly. "Because moments like this travel faster than sirens." Reeves pulled the phone out despite himself. Notifications flooded the screen. Mentions. Messages. Missed calls from Precinct Command. One headline preview had already formed from a local account. Chicago officer confrontation video spreads online. His face drained of color. The crowd saw it happen in real time. Monica adjusted her sleeve and spoke so only he could hear. "You thought I was alone," she said. "You were standing in front of 1 million people." The first patrol car arrived with lights flashing but no siren, easing to the curb like it did not want attention even as the whole block was built from it. A second officer stepped out, younger, broad-shouldered, one hand resting near his belt out of habit more than intent. He looked from the crowd to Officer Daniel Reeves, then to Monica Hayes, then to the forest of phones pointed at all three of them. "What is going on?" he asked. Reeves answered too quickly. Subject became non-compliant. Crowd escalated. Monica said nothing. Silence had become her sharpest tool. The younger officer frowned. "Ma'am, are you injured?" Reeves shot him a look. Monica noticed that too. "I am standing," she said calmly. "That is all I will say for now." The words landed heavier than outrage ever could. People in the crowd murmured again. Someone whispered, "She knows exactly what she is doing." They were right. Monica had spent years watching moments like this slip away in confusion, rewritten by reports, buried under language that turned people into problems and actions into misunderstandings. Today she would not help anyone rewrite a thing. Wind lifted the edge of her blazer. Above them, grey clouds thickened over the city. A few drops of rain tapped against the bus shelter roof like fingers on glass. Reeves checked his phone again. More calls. More messages. One text preview from a fellow officer glowed on the screen. What did you do? He locked it immediately, but not before the younger officer saw enough to understand. Daniel, he said quietly, dropping the formal tone, maybe let the supervisor handle this. Reeves straightened. I am handling it. Monica tilted her head. That appears to be the problem. A few people laughed before catching themselves. Reeves turned red. Across the street, two men in suits had stopped outside a bank and were watching with the focused stillness of people used to boardrooms, not street scenes. A woman pushing a stroller stayed at the edge of the crowd longer than she meant to, drawn by the gravity of the moment. Even the food cart vendor had abandoned his sales pitch. Everyone sensed the same thing. Something had shifted, and it was not going back. The younger officer stepped aside to speak into his radio. His voice was low, urgent. Reeves paced 2 steps, then stopped. He wanted movement, command, control. The street gave him none of it. Monica reached into her bag slowly. Several people inhaled at once. She removed a slim silver business card case and opened it with practiced ease. From it she took a single card and held it between 2 fingers. Before anyone says another word, she said, this should go to your supervisor. Reeves did not take it. Pride can be expensive when cameras are rolling. The younger officer accepted the card instead. He read it once, then again, eyes widening just enough to betray surprise. He looked at Monica with new attention, then at Reeves with something closer to disbelief. You should see this, he said. Reeves snatched the card. His lips moved as he read the name. Monica Hayes, Senior Counsel, Chicago Civil Rights Accountability Center. Beneath it were 3 words that seemed to drain the noise from the block: Police Misconduct Division. Rain began in earnest now, soft and steady, dotting shoulders, phones, and pavement alike. No one left. Reeves stared at the card as if it had changed shape in his hand. Monica spoke gently, almost kindly. I told you public streets have memories, she said. I should have added that records do too. Another car turned the corner, darker, unmarked, moving with purpose. The crowd parted on instinct. Reeves saw it and swallowed hard. Monica did not even turn around. She already knew who was stepping out. The door of the unmarked sedan opened before the engine fully settled. Captain Laura Bennett stepped out beneath the rain with the calm speed of someone who did not waste motion. Mid-50s, charcoal coat, silver streak at her temple, eyes sharp enough to cut through excuses before they were spoken. She took in the scene in one sweep: the crowd, the raised phones, the marked unit at the curb, Officer Daniel Reeves standing too stiff, Monica Hayes standing too still. Nobody say another word yet, she said. Her voice was not loud, but the block obeyed it. Even the rain seemed quieter. Reeves moved first. Captain, this woman was interfering with an investigation and the crowd became hostile. Bennett did not look at him. What investigation? She asked. He opened his mouth, then closed it. That single pause was heard by everyone. Bennett turned to Monica. Miss Hayes, are you all right? Monica gave a small nod. I am standing, she said again. Bennett understood the sentence for what it was: measured, documented, deliberate. Would you like medical assistance? Not at this moment. Bennett nodded once, then held out her hand. May I see the card? Reeves passed it to her. The moment she read the name, something old and tired crossed her face. Not surprise. Recognition. She slipped the card into her coat pocket carefully, like evidence already belonged there. Officer Reeves, she said, finally meeting his eyes, remove yourself from the center of this scene. He blinked. Captain, with respect, I did nothing wrong. Then distance should not worry you. The younger officer took one step back automatically. Reeves did not. Pride held him in place where authority no longer could. Around them, phones stayed raised like candles in a storm. Monica watched quietly. She had seen men mistake stubbornness for strength before. Bennett gestured toward the patrol car. Now. Reeves moved at last, jaw clenched so tightly the muscle flickered near his ear. He walked 3 yards away, but everyone could still feel him listening. Bennett faced the crowd. Anyone who witnessed the interaction and wishes to provide contact information may do so. No one is being detained. No one is required to remain. The words changed the air immediately. People exhaled. A woman in scrubs stepped forward first. Then the man in the Cubs cap. Then the teenage boy with the phone. "I got the whole thing," he said, trying to sound casual and failing. Bennett handed him a department card. "Email it tonight," she said. "Original file only." The boy nodded like he had just been trusted with something important. He had. Monica shifted her bag higher on her shoulder. Rain dotted the leather and darkened the sidewalk to mirror glass. In every reflection, Reeves seemed smaller than before. Bennett stepped closer to Monica and lowered her voice. "I wish we were meeting under better circumstances." Monica's expression softened only an inch. "So do I." "You were on your way to the committee hearing?" Bennett asked. "Until your officer introduced himself." Bennett almost smiled, but shame interrupted it. She looked toward Reeves. "He did not know who you were." Monica glanced at the line of phones still aimed his way. That was never the real problem. Bennett held the truth of that for a second. Then her own phone rang. She answered, listened, and said only 3 words, "I am here." She ended the call and looked at Reeves again. "Deputy Commissioner wants a report in 30 minutes. His face paled. "From me?" he asked. "No," Bennett said. "About you." A murmur rolled through the crowd like distant thunder. Reeves took 1 step forward, then stopped when he realized cameras were waiting for whatever came next. Monica adjusted her sleeve and turned toward the intersection. Bennett spoke before she left. "Ms. Hayes, this city owes you better." Monica paused beneath the rain and answered without turning around. "Then let this be the receipt." By the time Monica Hayes reached the glass doors of the municipal center 3 blocks away, the city had already decided the story belonged to everyone. Screens glowed in coffee shops. Office workers huddled around phones in elevator lobbies. Taxi radios buzzed with half-facts and sharp opinions. Rain streaked down the windows as if Chicago itself wanted to blur the scene, but the internet had preserved every angle in perfect clarity. Monica paused beneath the awning and checked her cracked phone. Hundreds of notifications. Messages from colleagues. Missed calls from reporters. Texts from friends asking if she was safe. One message sat at the top from an unknown number, "We saw what happened. Keep walking." She slid the phone back into her bag and entered the building. Inside, marble floors reflected warm lights and hurried shoes. The committee hearing she had planned to attend was already in session upstairs, but no one cared about zoning budgets anymore. Staff members recognized her as she crossed the lobby. Their expressions changed in real time from routine politeness to startled concern. A receptionist rose halfway from her chair. "Ms. Hayes, are you all right?" Monica gave the same answer she had given outside. "I am standing." It was enough. In another part of the city, Officer Daniel Reeves sat alone in a briefing room that suddenly felt too small. His wet uniform clung at the shoulders. His phone lay face down on the table, still vibrating every few seconds like a trapped insect. Captain Laura Bennett stood near the window reading from a printed transcript someone had already generated from the viral footage. "Do you understand how fast this spread?" she asked without looking up. Reeves stared at the table. "People only saw one moment." "That is often all it takes," Bennett said. She placed another sheet in front of him. Complaint records. Prior stops. Warnings he thought had faded into archives. Patterns become headlines when cameras arrive. Reeves swallowed hard. Outside the room, officers passed by more quietly than usual. No one wanted their name near his. Back at the municipal center, Monica entered a private conference room where 3 colleagues waited around a polished oak table. David Mercer, senior litigation counsel, slid a bottle of water toward her. Angela Ruiz, media director, had 3 screens open and 6 browser tabs. Moving faster than she could read. "You are trending nationally," Angela said. "So is he. So is the department." Monica set down her bag and took a slow breath. "Then we have a window," she said. David nodded. "Civil filing, public records demand, an independent review request. We can move today." Monica looked at the rain beyond the glass. "We move carefully," she said. "This is not about one man losing control on one sidewalk. It is about every report that counted on no witness and every witness who was never counted." Angela turned her laptop so Monica could see headlines stacking by the minute. Chicago officer video sparks outrage. Civil rights attorney confronted on downtown street. Calls grow for department review. Monica read none of them twice. She knew headlines were weather. What mattered was what remained after the storm. At the precinct, Bennett received another call from the deputy commissioner. She listened, then answered plainly. "Badge and firearm secured. Administrative leave initiated. Internal affairs notified." Reeves looked up sharply. "You are suspending me before a hearing." Bennett met his stare. "No. You suspended yourself in front of half the city." He flinched as though the truth had weight. Evening settled early beneath the clouds. Streetlights flickered on a wet pavement. Monica stepped out of the conference room and into a hallway lined with portraits of officials who had promised reform in polished frames. Her cracked phone rang again. This time she answered. "Ms. Hayes," said a composed male voice, "this is the mayor's office. We would like to speak with you immediately." Monica glanced at her reflection in the darkened window, then at the spiderweb crack across her screen. "Get in line," she said, and kept walking. Night settled over Chicago in layers of reflected light and wet pavement. By 7:30, the rain had stopped, but the city still glistened as if it had been polished by the storm. Inside the Civil Rights Accountability Center, most offices had gone dark except for one conference room on the 12th floor where Monica Hayes stood before a wall of screens replaying the same few seconds from different angles. There she was stepping back. There was Officer Daniel Reeves moving forward. There was the crowd freezing. There were phones rising like a silent jury. Monica watched once, then asked for the sound muted. "We are not building a case from outrage," she said. "We are building it from facts." David Mercer spread folders across the table. Transit camera footage had already been requested. Pharmacy security archives were being preserved. Witness statements were arriving faster than staff could sort them. Angela Ruiz monitored television panels arguing over policy, race, procedure, and blame. "Every station wants you live tonight," Angela said. "Then every station can wait," Monica replied. "I am not here to perform pain on schedule." Across town, the police headquarters glowed with fluorescent fatigue. Officer Reeves sat in plain clothes now, his uniform taken for processing along with his body camera. The empty space on his chest where the badge had rested all day felt heavier than metal ever had. Captain Laura Bennett entered carrying a thin folder and a paper cup of coffee she never offered him. "You are being interviewed by Internal Affairs at 8:15, she said. Reeves rubbed his temples. "This is political." Bennett placed the folder on the table. "No. Political would have protected you." He looked up sharply. "I made one mistake." Bennett's eyes hardened. Men always call it one mistake when they are only counting the moment cameras saw. The room went quiet except for the hum of the vent overhead. Reeves stared at the tabletop as if it might provide a version of events kinder than memory. It did not. At the center, Monica finally sat down. Her cracked phone buzzed again and again. She ignored the mayor's office, reporters, and 2 national networks. One message made her pause. It was from the teenage boy who had filmed from the bus shelter. Tyler Brooks. I sent the original file. My mom said thank you for what you do. Monica read it twice, then typed back 3 words, thank you back. Angela noticed the small smile that followed. You trust strangers quickly? She asked. Monica shook her head. I trust courage when I see it. On a downtown plaza below. Protesters had begun gathering in the damp evening air. Not a massive crowd, not yet. 50 people, then 80, then more. Some carried signs printed in haste. Some carried umbrellas. Some carried only their presence. Chants rose and fell between buildings, not furious so much as tired of repetition. They had seen too many scenes start the same way. At headquarters, Bennett received a tablet from an aide. Body camera sync recovered, the aide said. Bennett opened the file. The recording began late, exactly as everyone suspected. But what it captured after activation was enough. Reeves breathing hard, the crowd already gathered, Monica composed, witnesses challenging his story in real time. Bennett looked at Reeves for a long moment. Even your missing footage speaks, she said. He said nothing. Silence had finally reached him too. At 8:10, Monica walked to the window overlooking the city. Sirens moved in the distance like restless thoughts. Headlights streamed along Lakeshore Drive. Somewhere below, people who would never meet her were chanting her name because they needed it to mean something larger than a person. She placed one hand on the glass and spoke softly, mostly to herself. This cannot end with one suspension. David heard her. Then how does it end? Monica turned from the skyline, eye steady, voice calm as steel. It ends when fear changes addresses. At 8:15 sharp, the interview room clock clicked louder than it should have. Officer Daniel Reeves sat beneath pale fluorescent light while 2 internal affairs investigators arranged folders with the slow precision of people who already knew patience was power. One introduced herself as Lieutenant Marissa Cole. The other, a quiet man named Robert Chan, opened a laptop without looking up. This interview is being recorded, Cole said. Reeves nodded once. His confidence had not vanished, but it had become something smaller and harder to recognize. I want it on record that I feared escalation, he said. Chan finally looked at him. From whom? Reeves hesitated. The crowd. Cole slid a printed still image across the table. It showed the first moment after body camera activation. Monica. Hayes standing composed. Bystanders holding distance. No one advancing. No one shouting. Interesting, she said. Because the crowd appears to be watching you. Across the city, Monica stood behind a podium in the lobby of the Civil Rights Accountability Center. She had refused studio lights and prime-time chairs. Instead, she chose marble floors, public access, and a microphone borrowed from the building manager. Reporters packed the room shoulder to shoulder. Camera lenses lined the back wall like a second audience. Angela Ruiz whispered, 3 minutes live to every major local station. Monica nodded and waited. She did not shuffle papers because she needed none. Outside, the protest had doubled in size. Chants echoed through revolving doors every time they opened. At headquarters, Reeves rubbed his palms together under the table. I was following procedure. Chan typed for several seconds, then turned the laptop so Reeves could see a timeline compiled from witness videos, traffic cameras, and dispatch logs. Minute by minute. Angle by angle. Which procedure begins before reasonable suspicion and ends after your camera starts late? He asked. Reeves looked away. Sometimes truth does not shout. It simply arranges itself in order. In the lobby, Monica stepped to the microphone as the red light blinked on. The room quieted immediately. This afternoon was not extraordinary, she began. Her voice was steady, low, impossible to ignore. That is the problem. It felt familiar to too many people. Pens moved. Screens glowed brighter. I am not here because my phone was damaged. I am not here because my profession gave me access to cameras and counsel. I am here because thousands of people without either face moments like this and disappear into paperwork. A murmur rolled through the room. Outside, the crowd heard her through speakers someone had set near the doors and answered with applause. At headquarters, Captain Laura Bennett watched the press conference on a monitor in the hallway. She stood alone, arms folded, expression unreadable. When Monica said the word paperwork, Bennett exhaled through her nose like someone who had spent years drowning in it. An aide approached with another folder. More complaints tied to Reeves, he said softly. Bennett accepted it. The stack was becoming a tower. Inside the interview room, Cole asked the question Reeves had feared most. Why did you approach Ms. Hayes in the first place? He gave 3 different answers in 30 seconds. Suspicious behavior. Traffic concern. Crowd management. Each one weaker than the last. Chan stopped typing. You understand inconsistent statements create their own evidence. Reeves stared at the tabletop again. In the lobby, Monica continued. Accountability is not anti-police. Accountability is anti-abuse. If an officer can be trusted with authority, then that officer can be trusted with review. Reporters raised hands. Questions flew. Lawsuit? Resignation demands? Federal inquiry? Monica answered none directly. Tonight is not about punishment, she said. It is about patterns. That word traveled faster than any headline. Pattern. It moved from television captions to social media posts to kitchen tables and precinct hallways. Pattern meant history. Pattern meant this was bigger than one sidewalk. Bennett looked down at the complaints folder in her hands and knew Monica was right. She opened it to the oldest report, then the next, then the next. Each page carried the same quiet sentence in different forms, no action taken. She closed the file and made a decision that would reach the city before sunrise. By 10 o'clock, Chicago no longer sounded like one city. It sounded like many truths speaking at once. Television anchors repeated the same footage with different tones. Talk radio hosts argued over law, race, and respect. Restaurants played the clip above crowded bars where strangers debated like family members at a holiday table. In apartment kitchens, parents explained familiar feelings to children too young to need them. On train platforms, commuters watched the scene in silence, then looked up at the officers walking past with new attention. Inside police headquarters, Captain Laura Bennett stood at a podium she had never wanted. Department flags framed her on both sides. Flashbulbs burst across the room. Reporters packed every row. Behind them, staff members lined the walls, faces careful and unreadable. Bennett placed both hands on the lectern and began without ceremony. Effective immediately, Officer Daniel Reeves is suspended pending full investigation. In addition, the department is reopening prior complaints associated with his conduct and initiating an external review of stop and contact procedures citywide. Pens raced. Voices rose. Questions collided in the air. Was the department aware of previous complaints? How many incidents are under review? Did public pressure force this decision? Bennett let the room strain itself empty before answering. Public visibility did not create the facts, she said. It revealed them. Across town, Monica Hayes watched the press conference from the 12th floor conference room, arms folded, expression still. Angela Ruiz grinned for the first time all day. That line is going everywhere. Monica barely nodded. It should have happened before cameras. David Mercer slid a fresh document across the table. Draft demands for records retention, disciplinary files, training logs, stop data by neighborhood, and complaint outcomes over 5 years. If they opened one door, he said, we open the rest. Monica signed the first page without sitting down. In a small interview room downstairs at headquarters, Daniel Reeves learned of his suspension from a television mounted in the corner. He stared as his own name moved beneath Bennett in bold white letters. Suspended. Investigation. Review. Words he once associated with other people now stood beside his face. Lieutenant Marissa Cole entered carrying a cardboard box. Personal property, she said. Inside lay a watch, wallet, keys, and the folded photograph that had sat in his locker for years. No badge. No authority card. No certainty. You cannot do this because of optics, he muttered. Cole closed the box lid. Optics are what mirrors show. This is consequence. Outside headquarters, protesters heard the announcement through speakers and answered with cheers that echoed off stone and glass. Some cried. Some laughed in disbelief. Some simply stood still, because after enough disappointment even good news can feel unfamiliar. A pastor in a dark coat raised his hands for quiet and said one sentence that rolled through the crowd like prayer. Tonight is not victory. Tonight is proof. Near midnight, Monica finally stepped outside the center. The rain had washed the air clean. Streets shined under amber lights. A few protesters recognized her and began clapping softly, then louder, then all at once. She looked almost uncomfortable with it. Praise had never interested her as much as repair. A young mother approached holding the hand of a girl no older than 8. Thank you, the mother said. She saw you on television. Monica crouched to meet the child at eye level. Then make sure she also sees herself, Monica said gently. The girl nodded with solemn seriousness. Children sometimes carry better than adults. Across the street, a giant digital billboard changed advertisements and, for 3 seconds, reflected Monica's silhouette against the skyline. Then it moved on. So did she. Her cracked phone buzzed once more. A text from Captain Bennett. We found 7 more files tonight. Monica read it beneath the streetlight, typed a single reply, and sent it. Then keep digging. Somewhere behind her, the city kept cheering. Somewhere ahead of her, systems that relied on darkness had just learned sunrise can arrive after midnight. 3 weeks later, the city wore early summer heat and the memory of rain. Trees along Michigan Avenue had turned fully green, sidewalk cafes were crowded again, and people had returned to the ancient habit of pretending systems repair themselves if enough time passes. But inside room 402 of the municipal center, time had not been allowed to drift. It had been organized into binders, exhibits, sworn statements, and data charts projected 20 feet wide across a public hearing chamber packed beyond capacity. Monica Hayes stood at the front table in a cream blazer, stacks of documents arranged with mathematical calm. Behind her sat community leaders, attorneys, clergy, and residents who had waited years for someone to ask the right questions in the right room. Across the aisle, city council shifted in expensive chairs that suddenly looked less comfortable than they cost. Captain Laura Bennett sat alone in the second row, uniform pressed, expression steady. She had testified that morning for nearly 2 hours. She had not defended everything. That was why she was still respected by some and distrusted by others. Sometimes progress arrives carried by imperfect people willing to stop lying. Monica pressed a remote and the screen behind her changed from maps to numbers. Stop data by neighborhood. Complaint outcomes. Camera activation delays. Discipline rates. Patterns made visible. The room grew quieter with each slide. What happened on that sidewalk was recorded by chance, Monica said. What happened before it was recorded by design. Pen stopped moving. Even reporters knew not to interrupt a sentence that clean. She continued. When people say they want one bad officer removed, they misunderstand the scale of the problem. A weed grows because the soil permits it. Across town, Daniel Reeve sat in a small rented apartment above a laundromat, watching the hearing on a second-hand television balanced on a crate. He had shaved, dressed neatly, and called 3 lawyers who declined representation before noon. The room smelled faintly of detergent and stale coffee. On the screen, his face appeared only in clips, then vanished beneath charts and testimony larger than him. That was the part he had never imagined. He thought the story would be about his punishment. Instead, it had become about the structure that produced his certainty. In the hearing room, public comment began. A nurse described being dismissed after filing a complaint. A veteran described teaching his teenage son how to survive traffic stops. A retired officer admitted younger recruits learned quickly which rules mattered and which only decorated manuals. Then Tyler Brooks, the teenager from the bus shelter, stepped nervously to the microphone in a borrowed tie. "I just pressed record," he said. "But I keep thinking about all the times nobody did." The chamber answered with the kind of applause that sounds more like grief than celebration. Bennett lowered her eyes for a moment. Monica did not. She wanted every word to land where denial once lived. By late afternoon, the council voted unanimously on emergency reforms, mandatory immediate camera activation, independent review triggers, public complaint tracking, expanded bias training, and random audits of street stops. It was not revolution. It was paperwork with teeth. Sometimes that matters more. Outside the building, hundreds waited under bright sun for news. When Monica emerged, microphones rushed forward like gulls after bread. She raised one hand and the crowd settled. "Today is not the end of anything," she said. "It is the day excuses lost official protection." Cheers rose from the steps and rolled into the street. Bennett came out minutes later and stopped beside her. For a second, neither woman spoke. Then Bennett extended a small evidence envelope. Inside was a cracked phone, screen repaired, case cleaned, battery replaced. Monica looked at it and almost laughed. "You fixed it." Bennett shrugged lightly. Some things should be returned better than they were found. Monica accepted the envelope. Across the street, cameras flashed again, but this time no one looked afraid of them. She turned toward the crowd, then back to Bennett. "He thought force would end the moment," Monica said. "He forgot truth records longer." And as the city roared around them, Chicago learned something simple and expensive: a badge can command a street for minutes, but accountability can change it for years.